So I want you to open up, go to File, and you open Recent. So I put blocks. It'll give you your most recent. I got the most recent 10 files or whatever. But we're going to open this up. I'm not going to save the changes before closing. So here are my blocks. So I did all that explaining so that we can go over here. We have add a cube. And we're going to play with this in a bit. But right now, I want you to come up here to add. Yes, the shortcut is Shift A. You can do that. We're going to add a mesh. And we are going to go over and we are going to add a plane. Don't worry about curve, surface, metaball, tech. Don't you worry about any of that stuff. We're not going there. We're not. So you're going to add a plane. So what we're going to do is click onto plane. Now, you may not be able to see it, and that's fine. It's there. But if we look over here where it says add plane, I want you to click in there, and I want you to type, let's say 60. Enter. So our plane is way over there. Wherever your plane is, here's what I want you to do. The first thing I want you to do is we want to go to 1, and then you can zoom out, and I want you to move the plane. If it's above, if it's below, it makes no difference. You know how to use the move tool. We're going to move it over, and then we're going to move it down to be even with our x-axis plane, right? And we want to double check everything. So we want to go to 3, make sure it's there. Okay, I'm cool. So now I'm going to do this, right? And so what I want to do is I want to go down to this add cube. And we're going to click and drag, and then we're going to move up. And I'm going to click and drag, move up, and then click again. Click, drag, and you can do this. Just play around with it. Move up. Now I want to go on top of one of these other cubes. Click, drag, move up. So do it again. Click, drag, move up. So I'm going to move around here. Click, drag, move up, and maybe put one like kind of at the corner here. Click, drag, move up. So for my eagle-eyed peeps over here, you're like, ah, this is kind of like a city. I can now plot out my 3D cities and not have to worry about it. So check this out. So right next to here, we'll interrupt this little building, and then we'll just go up, and then we'll do this again. We'll put it right on the edge here. We'll go up again. So now we got ourselves a little elaborate 3D building there. So let's move around. Now let's click, drag up. We'll put some little layers on here. Click, drag, and move up. Click, drag, move up. And just go with whatever you feel there. You're going to mess up. You'll make mistakes. That's cool. Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. You'll click, drag, move up. If you want to reshape some stuff, click, drag, move up. Make a different looking building. Click, drag, move up. We'll put a little bit of a so if I zoomed in, so I'm starting right here. So I'm also using these little grid lines to line up. So check that out. So I'm using this grid line to kind of line things up. So I'm clicking, I'm dragging in, pulling over, then I'm moving up, I'm stopping. So now I got this shape right here. And so now the other thing that I'm going to show you guys is that we're going to go back to our select tool. So one of these buildings that you've selected that maybe has 2 or 3 stories on it. Now all this is madness over here. This is cube. This is madness. I know. This is this is quick and dirty way of making a little cityscape here. So we're going to click. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hit Shift, click, hit Shift, click. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to hit Control J. Now you've joined that together. Control J. And you can rename this. And I want you to click over there, find where it is over in your scene view. And we will call this building. Did I spell that right? No, I did not. Forgot the U. Building J. There we go. So if I'm just clicking around here, got building J. Now if I don't like the way building J is, I can move it, right? So I can click onto here and I can just move the whole thing, right? All right. So here we go. So wherever your city is, I want you to go over here and I want you to, we're gonna find where our light is. We're gonna take our light. We're gonna move the light down. Now I want to make sure that wherever my camera is at, so let me go to 7 on my number pad. So my camera is way over here, and if I click onto my light, it's over there. So I want to move my light to where it's kind of close by my camera view. And I'm going to go to 1. Now see, it's all the way down here, and I couldn't see it. So I'm going to move this up here. Then I'm going to go to 3. And I want to make sure it's somewhere where my camera can see it. So now what I want to do is go to my camera view. And I may not like this camera view. So I have I'm going to go over here to my scene. And I know there's all that stuff over there. But go to your camera. Make sure it's highlighted around here. And you can just kind of use these to where you want to be right around the light here. You can rotate. Rotates this way. You don't rotate it that way. And what I want to do is I'm going to rotate this up a little bit. I want to make sure I got my light in here. Now I want to hit F12. So now if you hit F12, that prints what you are seeing in your camera. And now you got like these little buildings here. Now there's not a lot of light right there, but that's okay. So what we can do is I can go to my cursor, building these skills up. I want to place my cursor right there where I can see it, or I can place it somewhere else. And then I want to go up to add. So I'm going to go to add. I'm still in object mode. I'm going to go down to light, and I'm going to go to point light. All right. So now so the point light, it's giving us some stuff here. You can make a point light. You don't need to make a sunlight. But let's make a sunlight. Let's make a sunlight, and let's get out of camera view. So the sunlight is going to be really bright. So if you hit F12, where it should be really bright. So it's going to give us a much clearer. So I hit F12, and that's our render result. So we could have put in another sunlight. That's fine. The other thing that I want to show you guys, because then the next one, I'm going to give you a little small assignment there. We are going to go to this. So all my gamers out there, you'll like this. So view, you're going to go to, you're going to go to view, right where next to object mode. You're going to go down to navigation. You're going to go over. Now, occasionally you're going to not hit it right perfectly. Don't worry about that. Go all the way down to walk navigation. Now, move your mouse. Now, WASD. So W is going to go forward, just like a video game. Take your time. Don't worry about it, because flying navigation goes really, really super fast. And we can go through here. And you can turn, and you're moving it just like a video game, right? Just like an FPS, just like a shooter. You're just moving through here. And the other one is Q goes down, E goes up, and you're moving around with your mouse wheel, and you can just click and stop, then all of a sudden you're up out of navigational view. So If we wanted to, we can go in here and we can add a camera. Oh, where did I add my camera at? Let's go out of here. See where I went to. Let me get up out of here. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So this is my camera. So now I got my camera highlighted. So now if I go into camera view over here, well, it's giving me that same camera. So that's a little annoying, but maybe I want my brand new camera here. So I'm going to go to 7 and I'm going to kind of pan over because I'm way out because my camera is over here. So now I want to take this camera and I want to move it. So maybe I want to move my camera over here, right here, and I want to rotate it. So now I'm going to rotate it around. Didn't mean to rotate it that way, but that's okay. Meant to rotate it like that. And that's where that camera is. Now, this is, I don't quite know where this camera is. So let's go with 1. It's kind of pointing straight ahead a little bit. So I'm going to go down. Let's kind of point it right there. Let's go to 3. Okay, so if I go to camera view now, that's my highlighted camera right there. So you're like, wait a minute, I want to go to the new camera. Luckily, Blender has made this a little bit easier for us. So right up here where it says Camera 01, and you can rename your camera too. You can rename it. Let's rename it. Doug. There you go. Where'd Doug go? Where did Doug go? There's Doug. So you see the little camera icon right there? I'm going to click onto the camera icon itself. The little movie camera, not the picture camera icon. That's not that. This is our little, looks like a little movie camera. It matches this icon right here. You're going to click on the icon itself. Now that is active. Okay? That's active. And so, that being active, now when I go to the camera, I get my different view. So now I'm looking at that other camera over here. And then, if I hit F12, then all of a sudden, I get a much different render result. All right. So there you go. That is, that's how you add planes and stuff. The one thing that I do want to do, we're going to do a little assignment in the next video. I'm going to give you your assignment, and this is what I want to see you post. Is the assignment when I give it to you. All right. So I will see you in the next video.